What's goody? Oh, how you doing? Ah, nice to see you. Nice to see you. All right, let's get on. Let's get on, baby. Page 12, shaping. But first, you know, I've been taking this Nicorette gum for like 4 years now, and I really feel like as part of my journey, I wanna quit taking them. Because number one, it's a horrible waste of money. This thing right here costs like $3, $4, right? Taking one of these per day, it adds up quickly. More importantly, I don't like the fact that my body is being held hostage by a foreign substance. I should be able to just hang out like anyone else, you know? So I've been reducing steadily. I used to take 4 mg, now I'm at 2 mg. And yeah, I'm gonna try the hardest to stop, and I'll update you guys on it. Um, so another thing is it makes me like feel so low energy. Nicotine always like just drops my energy level, and I need it, so I can't afford that. So shipping. Potter at the wheel. From centering to finished pot, form increases as options decrease. Oh. Softness goes to hardness. Form increases as options decrease. Isn't that so cool? And that has to do with like entropy and stuff like that. When a potter begins to throw a pot, she picks up a lump of clay, shapes it into a rough sphere, and throws it onto the spinning potter's wheel. It may land off center, and she must carefully begin to shape it until it is a smooth cylinder. Then she works the clay, stretching and compressing it as it turns. Pottery is such a relaxing pastime. And if I had like a potter's wheel and everything, all the required materials, I'd definitely do it. Because there's something about just touching the clay and like shaping it. It's like really, truly like healing. I don't know how to express it. I just like the cool temperature when you squish it. Plus, when you look at all the like beautiful pots and stuff that people make, it's mind blowing. And I feel like it's one of these disappearing skills in the world. I can't remember the last time I went to a supermarket and they had an aisle for pots. It's quite rare. Um, unless you go to some exotic shop or you're specifically looking for a pot. Um, it's surprisingly difficult to get one these days. Um, you know what? I'll get a pottery like setup one day. It's just fun and it's relaxing. First, it is a tower. Then it is like a square mushroom. Only after bringing it up and down several times does she slowly squeeze the revolving clay until its walls rise from the wheel. And that's a good analogy for cultivation. Form increases as options decrease. So there's this idea, which I agree with, that essentially all spiritual paths really, uh, we're talking about self inquiry with the intention to understand your own relationship with reality and your relationship with mind. Okay. All these paths lead to the same thing. Okay. Uh, Now, there are different names for it and everything like that, but ultimately, whether you're like doing Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, even like Christian mysticism, and I'm sure Islam is the same thing, right? Or any other religion for that matter, including ours of our traditional African religion here. All of those different practices, no matter how outwardly different they may be, at a high enough level, and we even, I'm dumping Nigong into this, right? As unique as it is, it leads you to a state of non-dual unity with everything else, right? So to me, when I that line, form increases as options decrease, it's like saying, it's almost like it's saying like the more refined and cultivated your practice becomes, the fewer opportunities there are to engage in delusion, you know, this separateness. There are fewer chances for you to think, oh, this is me, this is my thing, it's special, it's the only way, and everything else is like inferior, you know. Um, or this is me as an organism, entire in its entirety, and everything else is separate. Fewer and fewer things like that tend to come up because you just begin to realize how closely connected everything else is, and how your own practice was, you know, gained from other cultures, and has borrowed material from all over. That's what that line means to me. So, the whole process of forming a clay pot, it's a good analogy for cultivation and spiritual practices. She cannot go for too long, for the clay will begin to tire, then sag. I'll have to look up like what happens when the clay gets tired, in quotes, like on a molecular level. She gives it the form she imagines, then sets it aside. And I've always wondered, is there really ever a stage when you're done with meditation, cultivation? And I'm not talking about like death. I mean, like, after so many countless cycles, is there just an end state? That'd be kind of sad, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if it was sort of like an infinite thing you could do forever? Reaching deeper and deeper states. Maybe that's what creation is all about. It's about creation going from a tiny little instance to gradually packing on more and more layers. I don't know. The next day, the clay will be leather hard and she can turn it over to shape the foot. Some decorations may be scratched into the surface. Eventually, the bowl will be fired, and then the only options are the colors applied to it. Its shape cannot be changed. This is how we shape all situations in our lives. We must give them rough shape and then throw them down into the center of our lives. We must stretch and compress, testing the nature of things. As we shape the situation, We must be aware of what form we want things to take. The closer something comes to completion, the harder and more definite it becomes. That's very applicable in life, you know, and not just cultivation. Like, let's say you want to have a successful, wealthy, or at least you don't want to struggle financially. Well, saving is great, you know. Even no matter what you can afford, if you save a little bit, then it'll eventually, over the years, um, assist you greatly and as it multiplies. Not just financially, like this goes into relationships also. Now, not every relationship is salvageable, okay, but it's like, let's say you are, like in my case, you want to meet someone serious and take it to the next stage of your life, whether that's a family, kids, or just a long term partner that you're comfortable with, right? You have to put in, like, you have to be aware. Let me say this, you'll have to be aware of the way you are shaping the relationship from the early stage, because it'll be much harder down the road to make changes to that relationship that you could have very easily at the beginning, you know. I think that's such a wonderful and profound statement, you know. When you're starting a practice, for example, you really want to emphasize, like, how much work you'll be putting in on a daily or weekly basis, what your 1, 2, 5, 10 year goals are, or more, and how your practice fits into the rest of your life. Because as you do it, as I have for many years, well, I don't know if you could say many, but to me it feels like a long time. Um, it begins harder and harder to, like, step away from it and then pick up something else. Number one, your biases already, like, solidify, right? Number two, if your cultivation effort doesn't take shape in the way you wanted it to, it's difficult for you to see any other practice bearing fruit when your first love, your first style didn't, you know. Can be very discouraging. So the beginning of the practice is pretty almost as important as, like, the end stages, if there are end stages, right? Pay very close attention to how you practice and the habits you form in cultivation or anything else. Habits are difficult things to break. The closer something comes to completion, the harder and more definite it becomes. Our options become fewer until the full impact of our creation is all that there is. Beauty or ugliness, utility or failure comes from the process of shaping. Oh, I love this page. I will, I will definitely, if I have kids, and I hope I do, um, I will definitely share the message of this page with them. And I think it's an extremely important one, one that we tend to take for granted. But because it's so obvious, yet such a subtle thing, we really miss it. I miss it, you know. Definitely in my when I was younger, I wish I'd paid attention. I wish I had this advice when I was younger. But going forward, this is something I want to incorporate into my general, like, life strategy stuff, right? pay attention to the habits you form, essentially, is what this page says to me. And I think it's an important message. So that was it. I hope you're having a great day, and let me know how it is. Take care.